Welcome to another edition of the Show Me Hoops podcast, where we talk about basketball every week. I'm Coach David Heap. I'm joined by my brother, Toby Heap, head coach of the North Penn Running Mustangs. Toby, how's it going tonight?
Hey, it's going great. Thanks for playing.
Yeah, so we're going to talk about a couple of different things tonight, and we're going to dive right in here to our talk. And we're going to talk about setting goals and adjusting those goals as you go throughout the season. That's the plan. As you start your basketball season every year. So you just got finished with your first week of practice. And so,
right.
Go ahead and talk to our listeners about how things are going at North Penn and just when your first game is and all that good stuff.
Yeah. Well, this year is, I guess you could say, a rebuilding year, even though it's my second season at North Penn Scott, where we graduated 5 of our players for varsity last season. 5 of, I'd say, the 6 or 7 that actually played varsity. So we are, really adjusting, got a bunch of young kids in there that haven't played a ton or ever this year. So we're working on the fundamentals, developing a lot of skill work, and practice itself is going good. Working on making sure guys know that they got to be there every day right now. That's the big thing.
Well,
but,
you and I talked before, we came on the air, and, for some kids that have never played before, you're in a little bit different situation than some other coaches this year. One of the first things you got to learn when you've never been on a team is just how to be on a team.
How to be a part of something, a part of a group, and the commitment to it, the time. And for me growing up, it was understood. Like, I already knew, 1, I wanted to be a part of it. 2, I knew that everybody else is going to be there. Everybody else on the team is going to be at practice, and I can't just miss because of whatever I've got going on today. I've got to be there just like everybody else.
Right.
So that's, we're working towards that. We're working towards becoming better ball players. We this Thursday night have a chili supper scrimmage game, the annual North Penn Scott chili game. And then we've got a junior varsity tournament coming up in Campbell here in a couple weeks.
Yeah, it always, where we grew up at, the first tournament of the year was always the Bell City JV Invitational Tournament. And then, of course, the Orion tournament for the varsity kids.
I like to say I was on one of 2 Bell City teams to ever win the Bell City JV tournament.
And that tournament has been around forever, and I'm very interested to see, this is kind of a side topic, but in the next couple of years, as they move football back one week,
mm-hmm.
What's going to happen to some of those early season tournaments, in particular like the Arcadia Valley Thanksgiving tournament that's been going on for like 100 years or whatever. I mean, literally like 100 years.
Yeah.
I'm interested to see what happens to some of these early season traditions. Are they going to change? Are we going to have to, like the Riverbend Classic there in Southeast Missouri, are those kind of things going to change, or, what's going to happen to those?
Right. And like the Bulldog Classic in the Boot Hill, where you've got teams like Caruthersville and Hayti in it, who are both, Caruthersville just won their district, so they're going to be playing for at least another week. And Hayti was in a district championship for football last week. You never know when they might win it, so that pushes them deeper into basketball season.
Exactly.
Where they might not be able to participate in a football tournament or a basketball tournament.
Exactly. And so, that's one of the rules changes that's coming down the pipe. Another rules change that's going to take effect, I guess, going into next year now, will be that we're going to change districts every year now instead of every 2 years.
Every year, yes.
You'll be on a 1-year district rotation. The reason for that, and we're kind of getting sideways, this was not one of the things we were going to talk about tonight, but that's okay.
You never know where we're going to go.
That's right. For years and years, if you were assigned to a district, it was 2 years. The reason they did that is because MSHSAA took enrollment every 2 years to try to determine which teams are going to be 1A, 2A, etc. So when they do that and they put everybody in a district, it's really was a lot of work because you had to do it by paper forever and ever. It wasn't online.
Right.
And so when they did that, they just did it every 2 years, and this is going to be your district. Now that everything's electronic, teams are able to, or schools are able to upload that data electronically in September to the Department of Education every year, and then MSHSAA takes those numbers and forms the classifications based off of those numbers. So
Right.
now that they're doing that, and then the wrinkle they're going to put in, and I think this is a really smart idea, they're going to take freshman, sophomore, and junior class only to determine your classification for next year. And the reason they're doing that, if you think about it, it makes sense. Those seniors aren't going to be there the next year, so why would you count them as far as your district and your classification? Exactly. I remember a couple years ago, Scott County Central, they were Class 2 on a 2-year cycle because, again, it was 2 years at a time. The first year of that 2-year cycle, they won the Class 2 state championship when Jeffrey Porter was a junior. And then the next year, they lost in the district championship to Bloomfield. So they won state and then lost in districts, and they were one student over the line to be 2A.
Right. And Bloomfield, actually, to add on there, went to the Final Four.
That's right. They sure did. And so that just goes to show you, whereas if they had taken the count again, Scott County would have been 1A for sure. But just the way that we used to count is different than how we're going to count, going forward. So very, very neat thing I think that they're doing. I think that's a good move. Another thing that's out there just kind of
hold on. You're giving credit right now. You're tipping your hat to MSHSAA. I just want to get that on the record.
No, I'm not tipping my hat to MSHSAA at all. I'm tipping my hat to whoever came up with that idea. And so
a particular person that works for MSHSAA.
I think that, most rules from MSHSAA come from the schools. The schools will come up with an idea. They'll present it to MSHSAA. The board of directors at MSHSAA will put it on the ballot, or the schools will petition to put it on the ballot. But MSHSAA,
you're giving MSHSAA, for all of our out-of-state and out-of-country listeners, the governing body of sports in the state of Missouri. You're giving them credit to listening to those schools.
That's right.
To change this rule.
Yeah, even a broken clock is right twice a day. So they got this one right. They got this one right. And
I want to make sure that's right.
The other thing that's coming down the pipe for people, and we're about to go way sideways here,
we're getting off track, but that's okay.
There is a petition out right now, and it is gaining a lot of steam in the state of Missouri to go to 6 classes for basketball, which I'm not necessarily in favor of.
Right.
But I'll tell you right now, I did sign this petition. I am in favor of it. I did sign it. And the reason that it's gaining so much steam is the 6 classes are not going to be what we think of now. It's going to be 4 classes of public schools, and then it'll be 2 classes of private and charter schools only. There is a petition out right now. It was started by the superintendent at Norwood. And the reason that I think this is going to get further off the ground than any petition like this, we've had a lot of, I'll call them anti-private school petitions before.
Yeah, there's been a lot of talk about it.
The reason that this one is getting so much traction, is really getting off the ground, is because the governor right now in the state of Missouri, our newly elected governor, is a big charter school proponent. He is in favor of charter schools. He is in favor of private school vouchers, which would take public school money. Like every child would basically, you get so much money for them to come to your public school. He's wanting to give that voucher. You can take that money and go to a private school instead with it. Charter schools and private schools don't have to go by the same standards that public schools do. Basically, they get the money, but then they wouldn't have to test kids the same way that public schools would. They're not accountable. Like if their graduation rate is low or something, they're not accountable the same way that a public school is. So just to make it a real simple discussion, say there's $1 billion that gets spread out between all the public schools in the state of Missouri, which it's more than that. Just take $100 million and say we're going to take that from the public schools and give that to charter schools and private schools. So now you public schools figure out how to deal with $100 million less. There's a lot of superintendents around the state that are really mad about this. So they're saying, okay, if they want to have some of our money, let them go play each other. So instead of it being a coach out there that's upset that their team got beat by a private school, which is where a lot of these petitions have started in the past, this is now starting from a financial standpoint of school districts around the state kind of being fed up with charter schools and private schools being forced on people, So that's a whole political discussion aside, but I really think that petition is going to gain some momentum. And I actually sent a note to Kerwin Erhan, the executive director of MSHSAA last week, and said, I think this needs a lot of review, but I don't think it's a terrible idea. And it may, the charter and private schools may be in favor of something like that, depending on what it looks like at the end. But that is a petition that's out right now, and I think it'll get enough signatures at least to be put on the ballot. And the reason it got killed the last time it was on the ballot, and we got this from our representatives, I was in a meeting of superintendents last week, was that the Missouri State Legislature told MSHSAA last time, if this rule passes where they do something to exclude private schools, that the state legislature would take over MSHSAA, that they would just come and take over. And so MSHSAA, in effect, kind of talked everybody out of doing that because, whatever you want to say about MSHSAA, I don't know that the Department of Education and the state legislature could – it would just look completely different. It would just be a complete overhaul. So,
well, and you talk to most administrations about their dealings with DESE and all that, and just imagine that and dealing with sports at the same time.
The people at the Department of Education do a phenomenal job. They're really understaffed to do – they've had a lot of cutbacks in the last 10 years, but they do a great job. I just don't think it's fair to put that on their plate. We want them worrying about education, test scores, college career readiness. We don't want them worrying about football and basketball. Let them do their job. They're doing a really good job. Let's let them do their job, and let the people at MSHSAA who I don't always agree with, and that's well documented, but I get along with the people up there, and I think they try to do a good job also. I think they do have what's best in mind for kids. One thing about the Missouri State Tournament, for basketball especially, that people don't understand, the state tournament in Missouri is not designed to get the best 4 teams to the Final Four. That's not the design of the state tournament. Years ago, the beginning of the state tournament was there was a tournament down in Cape Girardeau. I'm talking back in the 1910s, 1920s, 100 years ago. And
when
so
all
there
of
was
us were around.
There was a tournament down there. There was a tournament up here. There was and so the state tournament was kind of bringing all those champions together to form one state champion. And so that was the model that we adopted. Was we wanted representation from each part of the state to see who the best team in the state was. This is back when people took a train to get to the Final Four or whatever,
or a mule.
Exactly.
If you read the history of Missouri basketball book, talking about every postseason game, there's a story it's in volume 1 of that book in the 1920s or 30s, where a school, they were crossing a creek in horse and buggy, and the horses turned over, and kids actually drowned to death in that creek because of they were going from Willow Springs to wherever.
Right.
I don't know when it was, but yeah,
so,
to your point.
Yeah, the transportation was an issue. You really couldn't. You're going to make one trip. You're not going to do like we do now, go to the quarterfinal, then go to the Final Four. You're not going to do that. And so a couple years ago, and the reason I know this is, number one, I've read it like you just described, but then number two, there was a petition and a thought that went to the basketball coaches committee. It's been a few years ago, and I talked to Kevin Garner, who works at MSHSAA. He's the head of the basketball at MSHSAA. And Kevin and I were talking about this, and he said the association, MSHSAA might agree with a lot of the things that we're talking about, but the state tournament is not designed for that, and it would really take some overhaul, to change the rules, more or less. And so, because we talked about different things like, what if we brought the Elite Eight instead of the Final Four to the final weekend, because right now we play Thursday, Friday, Saturday anyway. What if we brought 8 teams and played 3 games like that? What if instead we did, where you brought both teams from the quarterfinal up here? What if you had a boys' weekend? What if you had a girls' weekend? All kinds of different ideas got thrown around, and that was one thing that Kevin said that I thought was profound is Not that is Mish's position, but that's just been the historical position of the state tournament. It's not designed. It's not designed to get CBC and Chaminade in the finals if they're both from St. Louis. It's designed to get somebody from Kansas City against somebody from Cape Girardeau.
Right. All four quadrants of the state.
Basically, exactly. So let's talk about season goals. Even though I thought that was really good discussion, and maybe
everything you went on was pretty good, but I'm going to apologize for two things right now. Number one, we're 15 minutes into this thing, we're way off topic, but that's okay because we talked about good stuff. Number two, I'm going to let everybody out there know, and I know it's a letdown. I put it on my Facebook page, which I bet 2 people saw. Stephen A. Smith will not be on the show right tonight.
He won't be.
We didn't get confirmation. Apparently, he's eating some blueberry cereal.
He could be eating blueberries, and so we're going to talk. And we got to speed up a little bit because there is a time limit on this show. Believe it or not, right. People at home, and
we're in fast break mode.
So talking about season goals and adjusting season goals. Real quick, I'm reading a book right now. I'm always reading something or listening to something in the car. And this guy told a story about adjusting your expectations, and really what might be success for one person might not be success for another person. And when you talk about your basketball team, you may come in with one idea, one goal, and then have to adjust in the middle. And this guy told a story in the book about a guitar player who got kicked out of a band right when they signed a record deal. They had a chance to kind of start getting big. This guitar player gets kicked out of the band. That guitar player goes on to start the heavy metal rock band Megadeth, and they sold like 25 million albums, and this guy's a millionaire. But he considers himself a failure because he just looks at it like he was the guy that got kicked out of Metallica, which was, of course, a way bigger band. And so to most people, being in a band that made millions and millions of dollars would be a success. But to this guy, he looked at it as a failure in comparison to being kicked out of Metallica. So the point of that, as you relate it to basketball, if you have a team with one set of goals, and I'll give you one team that I coached that was this way. When I was at Caruthersville, the last year I was there, we start the year out 11-1. We're ranked 5th in the state, playing really well. We won the Dyersburg Christmas tournament where we beat a team over in Tennessee that was like 17-2, and their only loss was to one team in Alabama, one team in Georgia that had Glenn Rice Jr. on it. And so we were really good, playing really well. And then in the middle of the year, we had 2 kids that both hurt their knee to where our rotation was about 7 or 8. I mean, and our 7 or 8 were good players. Then we lose those 2, and it completely just changed the look of our team, the shape of our team, because they were both bigger players, and we had nobody to replace them. So we kind of had to adjust our goals from, we've got a realistic shot to make the Final Four to, hey, let's get to the district and let's try to do, a different kind of a goal. So talk a little bit about, I know with you're coming into the season already expecting to be young and inexperienced. What are your thoughts on coaches that might need to adjust their mindset early in the season?
Right. Well, first of all, I started last season as a first-year head coach on a varsity team. With the same goals that we always had when I was a player, which was to win state. I think that's the only way to really go, because if you're trying every day to win state, but you come up short, then you're probably going to win a lot of games along the way, because you're trying to compete at a high level every single day in practice. You're always, pushing or raising the bar up. But, we got about, I'd say Christmas break time last year, and it was seeming like that goal was not realistic. So our goal, we changed it to just win the next game. We don't want to focus on anything past that or anything before that. But whatever we got coming up next, we want to put everything we got into winning it. And if it doesn't work, that's okay, because there's another one coming up. So, this year, kind of a similar situation. Like you said, we're young, we're inexperienced, and we're even inexperienced for a young team. With a lot of kids that just decided to play this year, only played for a year or 2. So we're really both young and inexperienced. And our goal starting the season is to win more games than we won last year. which I think, kind of looking back at it before we said it was, that's probably something you need to do every year. If we won 20 games last year, let's win 21 this year. So last year we won 4 games, and we want to win more. So say we win 5 games. Like I told the guys, that's, to some people, 5 games won is not a lot, but to us, it would be an improvement. And it's not only that, it's also realistic. So I think whatever goal you set should be realistic and achievable. And then if it doesn't go right or if it doesn't seem right, we're going to adjust that along the way. But as far as wins, losses, we want to win more than we won last year.
And along that line of thinking right here, I pulled this is a clip I'm going to play of Coach Cuonzo Martin of Mizzou. This is from the Mizzou Sports Network, and we're going to play this clip real quick where he's talking about his team and kind of the outlook on their season. This interview was done right after their Mizzou Madness scrimmage for the fans.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, hold on a second. We got to have sound for me to do that, don't we?
That's right. You have sound.
Like this, or what did you see that you like?
I think the thing you try to get from a scrimmage like this is the fan energy, give your fans what they've been looking for, anticipating for a while. And again, it's not the level we would play in a regular game, but I thought our fans were excited to see our guys.
Yeah.
And for me, that's the most important thing in a setting like this.
The work you are getting done on the court every day in preseason practice, how has that gone so far, and where do you feel the team's at?
Well, I think we're progressing. Of course, we're not ready to play a real game. We're playing a big game tomorrow, but we're not ready to play a real game. Bill and I both talk. We know there's a lot of things that we need to put in on our end. They need to put in things on their end. So there's certain things we'll do or not do in the game tomorrow, but to help each other out. But we know the cause in that game tomorrow. But I'd say we're probably 75% of where we need to be if we had to play a real game.
Let's talk about Sunday and the big showdown for relief against the Jayhawks. We know how much it means to.
Okay, and that was just a few comments from Cuonzo Martin there. And, Toby, you may not have been able to hear that, but I know our people at home, they could hear him talking. And like he said, right now that he feels like they're probably about 75% ready for a game. And, again, you get into the season and you've got one set of expectations, and then as you get into the season, sometimes you can ramp those expectations up. Sometimes you can say, hey, I think we're a little further along, but, you could get into the year and have some setbacks, have an injury. I won't say any names, but I remember one year we were starting our season. We were going to play a team that was pretty good, and their best player quit right before the first game. And so, of course, that changed their outlook on that entire year because, of course, it's kind of like the same thing in fighting where they say everybody's got a game plan until they get hit in the nose. Right.
You've got to set a goals until you go out there and play. And you see what you actually are.
That's right.
And like you're saying, maybe you're a little better than you thought you were going to be.
Yep,
so
that's right.
You turn the goals up, or maybe you're not quite where you thought you were going to be, and so you kind of make it more realistic to keep everybody involved and pushing forward.
That's right. So we're going to switch gears here and talk a little NBA. And to start out here, I've got a soundbite from Charles Barkley talking about Lonzo Ball. Lonzo had a game this week. He did not score a point. And you and I were going to talk about who are you more concerned about, Lonzo Ball or Markelle Fultz, the top 2 draft picks in the NBA.
Yeah.
And so we're let me play this soundbite here from Charles Barkley, and he explains the problem with Lonzo Ball.
You can't do that.
You know why? Because he can't shoot. That's why he don't shoot the ball.
I've seen the man shooting, Colin. I don't want to
listen, man. Listen,
he's
only shooting 33% coming in.
That's the reason he don't shoot the ball. First of all, he's
going to get to the hole for floaters and layups.
Well, as I told you, he's got this defect in his game because he can only shoot the ball from the left side of his body. So he can only shoot going left because he can't go right because he's bringing the ball from over here. So he's only a half a player right now, and guys are taking half of his body away. I told you that during March Madness. Then I said, Kenny, watch. He can't go right and shoot the ball because he brings it from way over here. If you watch him, I watched him play 5 or 6 times. The only time he shoots is going left but just watch his form. He brings that jump shot so far. See that? He brings it from down.
Okay, and so what Barkley's basically saying right here is, Lonzo Ball is half a player because of the way he shoots the ball. He can only shoot going to his left. And he makes a really good point. And if you remember, I said the same thing back when he was coming out. I'm not down on him yet, but I said a couple of weeks ago I would love to see his stats at the end of the season. What did he do against, the bottom third of the league, or like the youngest guards in the league, compared to more veteran players? And if you look at what he's doing against veteran players, he's just getting tore up right now. And the reason is he cannot create his own. He can't shoot a jump shot off of the dribble because his shooting form is ugly, first of all. But
he's got to go left.
Like I've said before, if he shoot, any player, it does not matter your form on a standstill set shot. You can shoot it ugly as you want to, and if you're good at it, it may go in. I'll give you an example. A guy that played for me, it wasn't an ugly shot, but it was a different shot. A kid named Kenyon Wright, who went on to be a great coach. Kenyon made 102 three-pointers his senior year. Great shooter. But Kenyon had a very unique shot where it was kind of a set shot. And the point of it is, standing still, he could shoot the ball as good as anybody. But off the dribble, it's hard to shoot if you don't have proper form. So kids out there listening to this, when your coach is working with you on your form, the reason it's important to, get the ball up and shoot it the right way is you'll be able to do more than just be a stationary shooter. And right now, Lonzo cannot do anything off the dribble. He can do a little bit to his left because his shot's already over there. But to me, why he has never addressed that or fixed that, that's a lot of really, really bad coaching through his life. And I think his dad deserves a lot of the blame for that.
Well, one thing he has tried to fix it. He's talked about trying to bring his elbow over during some summer. I don't know if it was going into his freshman year of college, but he said it didn't work out, which obviously it didn't work out. It's going to take a whole bunch of time to fix something like that.
I could fix Lonzo Ball's shot.
Right. Well,
I could fix it.
Just about any of us could. But he's got to go play 82 games this year.
Right.
And, when he goes out to play those 82 games, he's going to shoot his shot.
Right.
Not the shot he's working on.
No, that's right. Yeah, he can't fix it in the middle of the season. But I'm just
saying.
saying.
It's going to take summertime. But, yeah, it's fixable.
You're wrong about the Lakers making the playoffs. They're not going to make the playoffs. And so when they don't make the playoffs, so I would say somewhere about the middle of April, he's going to have some time off. Right. Lonzo, fly me out there. All I need is a plane ticket and a place to stay. I'll help your shot for free.
First of all, you're talking to the wrong person. You cannot address Lonzo. You must address LeVar. He calls the shots. Second of all, they will make the playoffs. You'll see. Just give it time.
So,
go ahead.
So who are you more concerned about, Fultz or Ball?
Yeah. Well, I'm just going to go right here. I'm more concerned with Markelle Fultz. Whatever he's got going on with his arm, cortisone shots or stiffness, whatever they're saying, something's not right. To me, coming out of college, his shot was not broke. I don't know what his free throw percentage was, but that was a big talk about his free throw percentage was not good. But looking at him shooting a jump shot, it was not awful. So something's going on where they either think something is badly wrong that they don't even want to put him on the court, and they're making up some lies to say that something's wrong with his arm, or he's legitimately got the Philadelphia 76ers trust the process syndrome, where you're a rookie, you must have an injury. Because I think that's a given with their rookies. But I'm more concerned with him right now. If you look at those numbers, Colin Cowherd put up a stat the other day comparing him to Jason Kidd, which ironically is the person everybody compared him to in college. His points per game are more through this point in the season than Jason Kidd's. His 2-point field goal percentage is down from Kidd's about 2%. His 3-point percentage is up from Jason Kidd about 9% or 10%. I don't have the numbers in front of me. I'm just going off memory. And Jason Kidd's one of the top 5, I believe, 3-point field goals made in a career. And then also his assists per game are up from Jason Kidd's through this point in their rookie season.
Yeah.
So I'm not concerned with Jason Kidd at all, or with Lonzo at all.
First of all, this is a numbers-happy era. Everybody's numbers are inflated in this area because the game's faster, and you know. But at the same time, I'm like you. I'm not as concerned about how good he's going to be overall.
Yeah.
I do think he's got to figure out how to score in between. He can get to the rim, and even as ugly as his shot is, he can be a catch and shoot guy.
Yeah, he's got level 1 and 3. He's got to find level 2.
He can't score at that middle level, and I had my daughter out there in the driveway yesterday working on the floater with her. You know, he's got to find a shot, an in between shot, to be able to score.
And you know, not only is that important for his scoring, that's important because they run the pick and roll so much in the NBA that if they know that he cannot score coming off that pick and roll, shooting a jump shot, then that's going to take away, you know, that's going to narrow down the type of defense they're going to play against the pick and roll. So he's got to find a way to shoot in the mid-range. And if you look at his shot and compare it to Kevin Durant, a good shooter, an offensive player, it's not far off. You know, Lonzo shoots it a little bit more from the left side of his head, but Kevin Durant is pretty close to that. I saw the guys at B-Ball Breakdown, who are pretty good, follow them on Twitter. They called Kevin Durant and Lonzo Ball's jump shots kissing cousins, and they make a very good point about that.
I could not disagree more. I understand what you're saying about Durant's shot, but Lonzo's, it comes from as far over there. The one thing I will say about it, at the point of release, if you just freeze frame his shot at the point of release,
it's over his head.
It's not as terrible, but the thing about it is you got to get it. I call it a track. Everybody's shot moves in a certain track, and his shot, the track that it has to go through, he can't get it to that release point because the defender has hands. So they're not going to let you get the ball to that spot because it takes such a long arc, and it's such an awkward arc going away from the midline of his body and coming back.
Yeah.
And so
well, I don't think it's and I'm sure you don't either. I don't think it's a huge adjustment. It can be fixed almost pretty easily. It's just going to take a lot of hours and time in the gym.
Sure.
But I also want to, remind you when I told you about who are you more concerned about, Zoe or Fultz, that was not the complete name of the topic. It was also, and this is why Jason Tatum is the best player in this draft. And if you look at his numbers, what he's doing, one of the most NBA-ready players that there's been in a while, coming out and he looks like a pro. He fits. He looks like he belongs. And I said it all along that, Zoe could have great numbers. Markelle Fultz could do great things, but Jason Tatum is going to have the best career out of everybody in this draft class.
And that has me excited for Michael Porter Jr. because somebody who I respect a lot, who saw them both play in the same weekend, told me they're both really good, but he thought that Michael Porter Jr. was the best high school player he'd ever seen. And
He's
so
got a higher ceiling.
That's got me excited for what Mizzou might be this year. To wrap up this week, the last thing we're going to talk about as we're going into the season, we always talk about, you can only be good at a certain number of things. You can't be a good running team, half-court team, pressing team. You got to pick 3 or 4 things that you're going to be good at and try to develop an identity. My good friend Chris Sledge always says you got to find something to hang your hat on as a basketball team, and I think that's a good way to describe it. So if you were going to pick one thing, what would be the one thing that you would try to pick for your team this year? What's the most important thing for success?
Yeah. When I think about this and what we're talking about, I don't just think about the one thing I want to be really good at, but I think if I had...
Hey, online radio listeners, help keep...
What's the thing that I want to, focus on if I could only focus on one thing? And it's funny because I think if you're a player, that if you can only be good at one thing, it should be scoring or shooting the ball. Because if you can put the ball in the hole, they're going to find time for you to play. And if you're a team, it's kind of different. I think that a lot of people would say defense or rebounding would be the one thing you should be great at. You know, obviously that worked for Lennox McFerrin. They were really great at defense, and, you know, they shut a lot of teams out. But to me, if I had to pick one thing, and you told me this was the only thing I could be good at all season long, it would be taking care of the ball.
I agree.
If we could just not turn the ball over, and I've been preaching this to my team all week, turning the ball or taking care of the ball and rebounding has been two of our biggest things. But taking care of the ball, if we just don't turn it over and give them extra chances to score, and on the flip side, give ourselves extra chances to score, I think that's our key ingredient to success, if there's any ingredient. So taking care of the ball, not turning it over, and, you know, just really being comfortable in all situations of our offense, that if I've got the ball, you're not taking it from me. I'm not going to pass it into a spot where, you know, somebody could steal it and go score layups. So to me, the one thing that we want to hang our hat on is to take care of the ball, limit turnovers.
I agree, and that kind of goes along my next, what I would say, my number one thing every year is rebound. And the reason I say that is yours is the number one most important thing if your team's not good yet. Because until you can do what you're talking about, you can't rebound if you're throwing the ball away. There is no rebound. They're going to steal it and shoot layups. So you're not getting shots, and you really don't have a chance to rebound layups because they're going to make them. And so that has to be number one. But assuming that you can take care of the ball, and if your team's going to be pretty good and their team's going to be pretty good, that means they're probably not going to turn it over either. So if you have a good team and they have a good team, I would tell coaches out there, focus on rebounding. I talked to a coach last week. I talked to Pete McBride at Eminence last week. He and I were talking, and, you know, we talked about rebounding a little bit, and that's one of the things that Pete and I talked about. I just think when it comes down to good teams, we always coach the offensive rebounding as much as we did defensive rebounding, because rebounding is the one thing, besides taking care of the ball, that it happens at both ends of the floor. And that's how you can finish plays. Like if you play good defense, you got to finish that with a rebound against good teams, because they're probably not going to throw it away. And then on offense, even if you miss the first shot, if they don't finish the play, and you just chase that ball, and you know, we always played every shot is a miss. That was our mentality. And so that would be my number one thing, would be really, really, really coach up rebounding. And I think it's something you can be good at with any style of a team. If you've got bigger players, smaller players, you know, rebounding is something that you can coach into them. I believe that.
Right. And also, both of the things we're talking about are things that get you more possessions than the other team. So obviously, if you're going to play kind of a numbers game, like you were saying, everything's about numbers now. The more possessions you have in a game, the more likely you are to score than the other team. So if you get more rebounds than them, now you've got the ball more. If you have fewer turnovers, you've got the ball more than them. So taking care of the ball and rebounding, two of the biggest things in the game. And, you know, not only did I place taking care of the ball above rebounding for the reasons you said, but also in the high school game, a lot of, if not almost all of rebounds are below the rim, which are where just about anybody can go get one. So I think you can not luck yourself into a rebound, but really work your way into a rebound. If you're just trying to get the ball and you preach that to guys, hey, go get the ball, you're going to have 2, 3, 4 guys that have that mentality to say, I'm getting it, and they can go get the ball. And you would not have to spend as much practice time, I guess you could say, on that as you would to take care of the ball.
Absolutely, yeah. So who are you most excited to go out and watch play this year, you know, in the early season? Who do you want to go see? Maybe somebody that you're going to scout, or just a team you think might be good that you want to go see?
Yeah. To me, my favorite thing about the beginning of the season is the Riverbend Classic at New Madrid. You get to see some teams from out of state. You get to see some of our better schools around this area. This year, Charleston's going to be one of the better teams in the area, so you get to see them face some good competition. right away, and that's one of the schools that I want to watch and one of the teams I want to see play. Got all these kids that have been playing since they were freshmen, sophomores, and they're finally seniors. Madarian Clark, DeMarcus Sharp, these guys, I'm excited to see them. And also, Vashon High School will be at the Riverbend Classic.
Wow.
On the Saturday, so I'm excited. They've actually they've graduated the class that has won the last 2 state championships. So I'm excited to see what they've got coming up.
Yeah, that will be interesting to see them.
They're playing Charleston.
They were a staple of that back in the day. They came every year, and so to get them back down there, that'll be great. I'm excited to see a couple of people this year. First, you've got the big shootout up here, the Norm Stewart Classic. It's at Columbia College. They actually start the first game at midnight, which is kind of cool. The actual game is at midnight, and there's nonstop basketball for 48 hours. And so I may be there for 48 hours. I may just camp out.
Good luck.
But you've got I'm really excited to see Rockbridge play up here, Columbia Rockbridge. They've got maybe 4 or 5 Division I kids on one team. They've got a junior who's already committed to Mizzou, big-time player. I'm really interested to see Columbia Battle, where my buddy Brian Minnie is the coach. Tyler Victor, one of my former players, is an assistant there.
T-Vic.
They've got a good young group of kids. They won their district last year, and they've got a good young group right now of freshman, sophomore, junior kids. And then Coach Minnie's son is a senior who was an all-state player last year. And then Hickman's always good. And then the small schools around in our area this year, our kids at Prairie Home, we've got a chance to have a good boys team this year. Jamestown up the road has got a chance to have a good boys team. And then our girls, we went to the Final Four last year, and we're basically replacing. It's like a brand new team, but we have a good young group of players. They're banged up right now, so if we can get healthy, I'm interested to see kind of what they can do. But there's going to be some good teams in our area. Rockbridge, boys and girls, are both going to be good, and so. I think as far as, like the bigger schools, class 4 and 5, you've got Vashon, Sykeston, then, of course, Webster Grove's coming out of St. Louis. They killed everybody last year. But they ought to get a little competition out of Kickapoo and out of – I think Rockbridge can play with some people. So
Right. But, Webster Groves, they got the 2 big guns back.
They've got them back.
Courtney Ramey and
yeah. Well, they blew everybody out. The only 2 people that gave them really, I think that are in their class really are – Kickapoo and Rockbridge, and so it'll be interesting to see early on, how these teams look. I've actually got an article coming out tomorrow. It's a poll. Who do you think will win the state title in all 5 classes? So class 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5.
It'll be a good one.
Boys, I've got a poll out, and so if you get a chance, guys, check out that poll. Who do you got? Class 1 through 5. Who's your state championship pick? I know Darren Mainders will get everybody from Walnut Grove to vote because he got on me last year. I kept picking against him.
Yeah.
They've got everybody back. I know Advance is –
except for the one kid that didn't play, he said.
Yeah, and then Advance has got a lot back. North Andrews got everybody back. Then you've got Bernie's going to be good this year. I've talked to Coach Botch a couple of times. They've got a good group. Of course, Orion won a state title. They've got some players back. They got a lot of guys that were back off of that team, and so – we're running out of time here, so we'll wrap this up. Check out the website, and next week we'll do this again, and we may take a few callers next week because we've got this set up now to where we can take callers and have our guests back on kind of the way we did before. So we'll try to get some.
Pretty sure Stephen A. Smith is a go for next week.
He probably will be on the show, and so. Yeah. So, again, thanks to everybody. Check out the website. We've got a good article on there today, how to make your day a win, the Thor Ragnarok series. It just wrote to be funny, and so hopefully people laugh at the article and not me. And then
probably at you.
Probably both. And so, then, like I said, we've got the polls coming out tomorrow, class 1 through 5, state champions. Who do you got? So check out the website, Tobe, and good luck this week. And everybody, like I said, thanks for all the support and all the feedback. JWT.